What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Bird Rights Podcast. We're here to do our NBA playoff conference semifinals recaps. We'll give a little bit of a rant from a Sixers fan and Zach Lambert, some happy analysis from a new guest, Jason Williams, and his Miami Heat. And I'll give you some on the Lakers, and we'll cover the Sun series as well. We're going to cover everything. But to start us off, Jason, real quick, introduce yourself and say what's up to the listeners.
What it
This
do,
is my dad.
shorties? It's your boy Jason Lindsay Williams. Been a Heat fan for a long time, and we're headed to our third conference finals in 4 years. So I'm excited to be able to talk about it. Heat, Ravens, Orioles. Hope to be on this podcast a little bit more if I can these days, but we'll be away for the summer. So we'll see.
We'll make sure to get that done. All right, we're going to start with the series that just ended, Game 7 today. The Celtics, I guess, annihilated the 76ers. And we have some good analysis, some points, some talking points all of us want to get to. But first, we're going to use this as a vehicle to let Zach rant about his 76ers. And I'll make sure to put a
Not my
timestamp in the
76ers
description
anymore.
if you want to go past it. But here comes the Zach rant.
Formerly my Philadelphia 76ers. I'm a free agent now. I will be deciding my new fandom at the end of this recap here. But I guess where do I start here? The process is a failure. It's a complete and utter just failure. This franchise is just a sorry excuse for an NBA franchise and team. I can't even put it into words how embarrassed and how embarrassed this entire team should be from top to bottom, coaching staff, ownership, players, and fans too, honestly, just to be associated with such a horrible and embarrassing organization that just literally just never can live up to the to what they're supposed to be. I mean, every year, every offseason, people come into the NBA regular season, is this going to be the Philadelphia 76ers year? With James Harden and Joel Embiid, who just won the MVP, and James Harden, who was a former MVP, is this their year? With Doc Rivers, who, even though he's quite possibly the worst coach in the entire league, is going to probably make the Hall of Fame for riding the tailcoats of 4 Hall of Famers in Boston. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know. What this team should be is we should be a finals contender every year, and I feel like I saw on Twitter that, Sixers fans were saying that every year people were saying, this should have been the year that we had our best chance to win the finals or get to the finals. Everyone said that after the Raptors series, that this was our best chance to make it to the finals. And then after the Hawks series, this is our best chance to make it to the finals. And then here, people are saying it's our
Speaking of
best
the
chance to
Hawks,
make the
bro is in
finals.
Cancun right now.
I
Oh,
just,
I just met Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid down here on the beach of
shut the fuck up,
Cancun.
bro. Shut the fuck up. Come on, bro. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. Every after every playoff series, people will look back, the fans will look back and say, this was our best chance. We should have taken advantage of it. And it's the definition of insanity, is expecting a different outcome the same time over and over again. It's horrible. And I legitimately don't see a future or a way to go forward to be excited for Sixers fans. I genuinely don't see it, because Harden, even if he stays, I mean, that's probably the best option right now to succeed, is to keep Harden, but he's a bum. He's trash.
Yeah.
Like, he's not good anymore. Like, he's just not good anymore. He turns it over. Like, if he were to have gone into this Game 7 and put up like 15 points, even if he shot it bad, 15 points, like 7 rebounds and like 12 assists with only like 1 or 2 turnovers, that's a good outing from him. But no, he goes into this game. Let me look up his stats real quick. And he puts up 9 points on 3 of 11 shooting and 1 from 5 from 3 with quite a few turnovers. I don't know the exact numbers, but he put up quite a few turnovers and was just flopping all over the floor. I mean, like, I don't know what you expect. Like, I know damn well that James Harden knows that Scott Foster swallows his whistle when he's reffing games against James Harden. Maybe he shouldn't keep trying to get him to call like fouls on him. Like, I don't get it. And then moving on from this, we have Tobias fucking Harris, who's getting paid the most money on this entire team to be a fucking walking brick and score under 10 points 3 times in this series against the Celtics as our highest paid player. And it's still the worst decision in maybe NBA history to keep Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler. And Jason knows this damn well. Jimmy Butler is currently playing as one of the best players in the entire league, while Tobias Harris is taking and booking his flight to Cancun. Like, I just don't get it, bro. I don't get it, guys. I don't. You know, the guy who started the process, Sam Hinkie, got fucking kicked out of his job from Adam Silver because Adam Silver was crying about tanking. It didn't like it. So he kicked Sam Hinkie out, didn't let him finish his job of what he was trying to build. And that was the start of the entire downfall. After that, we drafted Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz. We traded McCall Bridges for Zaire Smith. And we signed Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler. Those are the big moves that we made after that. And it's just after that, I don't know. I think for when it comes to just game 7, and I'll just kind of get into the analysis of the series now, just from the game 7 standpoint, everyone, Joel Embiid, James Harden, Maxey, Tobias, basically everyone just showed up and kind of seemed completely out of it. I don't really know what it was. It just seemed like after that game 6, heart crusher when they were up late in the fourth quarter and just kind of gave it away. Kind of seemed like they just didn't care anymore. And I thought that's what bringing PJ Tucker in was going to be, was to change that kind of mentality. But it seems like nothing really changed. And we kind of just let loose on the brakes, or we just kind of pumped the brakes. That's what I was looking for. We kind of just pumped the brakes at the end of game 6 and just never started to play good again. I guess we had a good first quarter in game 7, but after that, it was just horrible. I mean, we got 50 apiece by Jason Tatum. It's just embarrassing. And I don't know. Joel had a good series overall, he had a good series for, the circumstances he was under with his knee injury. Harden had good game 1 and game 4, I believe, obviously. But other than that, he was awful. Tobias was awful. Maxey had 1 or 2 good games. Melton was horrible. Doc Rivers is just Doc Rivers. You guys can take the floor from me, man. I'm just done with this team.
Get you out of your misery. I mean, all right. So it was super strange, right? Because in this game 7, it's 55-55. And then some stretch of time later, it's I think 80-58. And I'm like, good Lord, that is incredible. That's incredible. And like you said, as a Philly fan, I don't know what to do. Yeah, I wouldn't know what to do. You have arguably the MVP of the season, Joel Embiid. You have James Harden there paired with him. You have a couple very quality pieces thrown in there surrounding Harden and Embiid. You feel like that should be enough to get farther enough. You feel like every single year it's your year, but there's always just something in the way, isn't there? There's something every single postseason in the season. You might get a round or 2 or something. You might get a round this year or whatever, but there's just something that happens every single time. I mean, Joel hasn't been able to stay healthy, but I mean, you also won a game without him and just still couldn't even win the series, even with that win without him. I mean, it seemed like in the third quarter they were doing the bare minimum. They were just trying without really they're just acting like they were trying without really putting up anything of real importance. But I mean that's what I gotta say.
Yeah. I have some overarching Sixers thoughts, and I'll let Jason talk after that. Then I'll get into some of the actual stuff from the games and what the Celtics were doing. But I actually think what's most frustrating about this for Zach and other Sixers fans is this team, they don't really have many tradable picks. Mm-hmm. Harden's a free agent. Harden, even if he stays, he could stay. I personally think Boston may very well go win the finals, and you got to Game 7 with them. I think this team has enough. They need Joel
trade
Embiid
Tobias
not to get.
Harris.
I mean, maybe sure something small like that could be fine, but they need Joel Embiid not to get hurt in a playoff series and be playing on one leg. Embiid was fine. He was a little worse than he is in the regular season. And when you don't have an overwhelming talent gap, you're not going to be able to win with your best player playing on one leg and being slightly below his capabilities. And in Game 7, he was bad on offense. Like that's straight up. He was bad in Game 7. But games 4, 5, and 6, he was pretty darn good. He was good. He wasn't shooting as well as he has in the regular season. Part of that's Boston's an excellent defensive team. He was still getting to the line. I guess my thought is you need Embiid to get in the lab and refine his game a little bit more. But more than that, you just need him not to get hurt. And one of these years, a lot of these injuries are so fluky. Like this year's not fluky. I wouldn't say the knee thing's fluky because that happens a lot. But like one of the years he got hit in the face. I actually think that's happened twice, right? He had a face injury twice going into the playoffs.
I mean, last year he got elbowed in the face by Pascal Siakam with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter of a closeout game in the first round.
Like random stuff like that is just wild. And then obviously, you need James Harden not to be the worst player in the league in closeout games. Like he was horrific. You don't even need him to be good. You just need him to be not terrible. And if you get Embiid improvement, and all right, Gray Rod down there, but if you get Embiid improvement and you get some Harden, the thing is that's the only path forward for this team if they want to continue to contend, because you're not going to be able to get substantial improvements to the roster. And if you do, I'll eat my words. I don't have any, I'm not anti-Sixers. I don't care. If I'm wrong about that, that's fine. I'd be glad to see them with some better talent. But I think the talent is enough, and they just need to do more with the talent they have. But yeah, Jason, you can go on. I'll get into some Celtics points after Jason you talk here. But
yeah, I mean, you guys said a lot of what really happened recently. I mean, we saw that James Harden literally collapsed in every fourth quarter after Game 4, or after Game 5. But I'm sort of forgetting what happened in Game 5. But I was watching Game 4.
Harden had a decent game in Game 5.
He
had like 18 points, and Harden was what you would want him to be in Game 5. 18 points, efficient, not doing too much. That's exactly what they wanted from him, and then he did not do that going forward.
I think one of the things we're neglecting is just the pure and total coaching collapse that happened after games 4 and 5, because Game 4 was so good. And you got a lot out of James Harden in that fourth quarter and in overtime that led to them getting that win to tie the series. And then Game 5, Doc Rivers was out coaching Joe Mazzulla that night as well. And I think that it's just extremely confusing as to what happened after that to me, because Game 4 was pretty much a clutch masterclass by Embiid and Harden and PJ Tucker. We out here not talking about PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker was maybe the best move that the Sixers made recently, because the Heat expected it. Like we clearly expected him to fall off. We clearly expected him to not be worth that money, and he was very much worth that money. He did what needed to be done. And Harden was making clutch shots in Game 4, but for you to not have any field goals in Game 6 and 7 in the fourth quarter, what? Like that is worse than what was happening with the Rockets. People were calling him a choker with the Rockets. This is a new low, and I don't know where you go from here. He averaged 20 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds in the playoff, and you would think that would be fine numbers for a player who's now a primary playmaker for Embiid, but you just needed more. And when you look at the shooting splits, I mean, 39% in the playoffs in total. 38 from 3 is fine, but 39 from the floor is crazy. It's just crazy. And I don't know how you mitigate Harden's fall off, because you gave up a lot get him. I mean, Simmons is kind of nothing right now, but it
Just two
feels like
picks in
they've
this, two
been
picks in
making
that
so
deal
many
too.
they've been making so many lateral moves, bro. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And it's like they think that these moves are going to work out, but they either move off of something too early or they jump into something that they think is going to be amazing and it ends up very
But,
mediocre.
but
And
like
that's been happening.
it's hard to feel like really what better position they could have gotten in though, from like Ben Simmons to James
Yeah.
Harden. I mean, I feel like this was supposed to be it. And
Mhm.
I know we said with Ben Simmons and when Jimmy Butler was on Philly and Tobias Harris and Al Horford and all these players that Philly's like kind of rotated in and out the last couple of years. I feel like this one though, like this felt like one of the most for sure upgrades that Philly's made. Because like we criticized like Al Horford when it happened. We've always said, oh, Tobias Harris, that's a lot of money that they have to deal with. We've always had these concerns, but with James Harden, we were like, oh, that is definitely a lot better for Philly than Ben Simmons is for Philly. Even if we have to get rid of even if like Seth Curry's gone and whoever. But like just like there's too many
I
things
mean,
to go wrong for them to like really like win a championship. Like there's too many holes that I feel like are there.
and it's good that you brought up Seth Curry because I'm literally thinking like they had their best run when you had Embiid. He had a good run in 2019, you know. Jimmy was a great secondary player. And Simmons was a two-way player who was a playmaker.
Yeah.
But they were surrounded by shooters. JJ Redick, Seth Curry.
Mm-hmm.
This Sixers team, I'm watching them these recent games. Like, are we gonna sit here relying on Niang and DeAnthony Melton and
Yeah.
Danwell House? Like, are we relying on these
Yeah.
guys to get us some bailout threes? You know what I'm saying? Because like
Yeah.
if Harden and them are driving into the paint and they can't do anything, they need to pass out. And if they're
Mhm.
not passing to Maxi for like a wide open shot, they're not getting anything.
Yeah.
It's
And
just like it's nothing.
the path forward for the Sixers team and what they needed this playoffs is they need Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid being the best player on the floor in the playoffs is not enough. He needs to be the best player on the floor for all of their wins and the best player in the world in the playoffs, which I think he might be capable of. But it's asking a lot to have. It's asking a lot to have anybody um, carry you like that. The roster's good. Like I think the roster is pretty good. It's not as talented as like what the Celtics have around Tatum, obviously, but I think Embiid obviously is way better than Jason Tatum as your primary scorer and what your team is built around. But yeah, I think just because I want to segue a little bit so we can talk about the Celtics some because we spent a lot of time on the Sixers. I want to give the Celtics some credit and also just talk about them for a little bit. This series is everything you love and hate about the Celtics at the same time. They respect to the Sixers. The Celtics should have won this series. Like they have the better team, and they're just like terribly coached and have all these weird moments in game one where they throw away the game, literally just throw it to Tyrese Maxey at one point. Game four, same kind of thing. They just throw the game away. Or was that game five? I think I'm thinking game five. Regardless, they have all these weird gaffes where they throw the game away. And it's really Tatum kind of takes on that as his personality, where it's like, at this point, I don't know what to make of Jason Tatum. Today he was the best player in the world. He played like the best player of the world today. But in game six for the first 40 minutes of that game, 42 minutes of that game, he was terrible. He was 1 for like 15.
Uh,
And then he suddenly since like the
Bro
six
was
minute mark in
playing
the fourth
like
quarter.
Michael Porter Jr. At his
Yeah.
worst.
I mean, I feel like a bunch of times what ends up happening between Tatum and Brown is that at best one of them is great and the other one is okay. At worst,
Yeah.
like one of them's okay, one of them's bad. Like I feel like very often one of them's on and one of them's off, and
Yeah.
at
I mean
worst one of them's
it's
average and one of them's
it's
great.
kind of the old man Durant thing that we're getting now. And we'll get into this a little later with the 34-year-old Durant. These two guys Tatum especially relies so heavily on difficult shot making and pull up jump shooting Jason Tatum was having a nightmare year on pull-up threes. He's shooting 29% on pull-up threes this year, which is not good for somebody who takes as many as he does. But today he was hitting them, and today, credit to them, Tatum was they were hunting Embiid and pick and roll. And this is not to take shots at Embiid. Joel Embiid, in my opinion, easily the second most impactful defender in these playoffs. He's protecting the rim at a level that only Anthony Davis is rivaling. But he's a 7'2" guy who's big and lumbering around on the perimeter, and it's hard to guard a guy like Jason Tatum doing that on any given night, especially when he has a knee injury and he's not moving as well as he usually would. But even if he didn't, Joel is a fantastic defender, but he's not going to stick with Jason Tatum under any circumstances. So they did a good job getting him involved in the action, even if Embiid's sticking, but to keep him out of the paint. It was a really good adjustment by Joe Mazzulla to start involving him in more pick and rolls. To be honest, it was a pretty obvious adjustment. I don't know why it took them 6 games to get there, but credit to them for picking up on that. And that should that's not going to work as well against Miami, and we'll get into that because of Bam's versatility there. But credit to them for finally adjusting. I still have my doubts about Joe Mazzulla, but the Celtics last year were this hard-nosed defensive team. They have their hard-nosed defensive team that would live on their defense even when they weren't shooting well. They defend well. That's not them this year. This year they are this kind of weak, soft defense that's like 10th in the playoffs in defensive rating as a team. And it's like, if they're not going to shoot 39-40% from three, they're not going to win. Fortunately, they're talented enough and they're deep enough that they do that a lot. But they're not going to win on nights they don't shoot well anymore with this team. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes against a really good defense in Miami. But that's my thoughts on the Celtics. Are we doing the Zach wheel spin now, or are we moving on?
I'm gonna say a few more things on the Sixers, and then we can do the wheel spin. Yeah. So
wow, that's crazy.
While you guys were talking,
the wheel spin.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. But while you guys were talking, I was kind of thinking about how like the Sixers could genuinely navigate this offseason and possibly get the fans excited. The only really like option I think that could actually like really entice fans would be obviously keep Harden, but then I know Declan said a little bit earlier in one of our group chats that Tobias is going to expire after this year or this next year. I think his contract's expiring. So, maybe you could trade him and free up some cap space possibly to use in the offseason or maybe next offseason. I don't really know if it'd be possible, but maybe you could sign like one or two guys that could contribute with the cap space that Tobias is going to give you if you trade him away. I know guys like Jeremy Grant. I know Sixers fans have been wanting to get Seth Curry back on the team for a long time.
You could get him on a mid-level, probably. You could probably get Seth anyway.
Yeah, but
please, I mean, y'all ought to get Seth.
No, yeah, I think it would be. I didn't want to see him go anyways. I thought.
I mean,
it was such a useless throw-in. The Nets didn't even use him. Like, I don't even.
Yeah, I know. He just sat on the bench.
I mean, like as somebody who lives in Philly and enjoys watching the games like around town and like going to them sometimes, I feel like you just need to bring in players that want to do what's best for their team and want to fill their role, because it seemed like nobody had a role to fill in this playoffs. Like I had no clue what DeAnthony Melton was supposed to be doing. I had no clue what House and even Tobias at times, but he played well today. Like I just don't know what they're supposed to be
teams
doing.
Teams that do the best in the playoffs,
it's so unclear
identity.
Yeah, it seemed like really the only guys with like a defined role on this team was obviously Joel, and then I think Tucker had a defined role. But then you look at Harden, and he was
of course,
some games he was like a scorer, and then some games he was just
he does not know what to be. So. It annoys me.
I think one thing on Joel real quick. I do think part of this is not to blame him, but in like the Kobe between Shaq and Powell, there would be times where he'd get the ball and people would be his bag was so deep, people just watch him. Eventually he learned to be quicker with his moves and more decisive and not let the double come. Joel will sometimes stand there and wait for the double to come and wait a little bit too long. This is something he's gotten better at, and you saw it, especially in like game 4. He was doing a really good job of this. He needs to more consistently be moving quick to before the double comes or as it's coming, and not letting the guys ball watch. But that's also part of that's just guys are ball watching. James Harden especially are just like part of it's they're not
coaching.
moving, and that's coaching exactly right. That's coaching, getting guys to not ball watch around them. Yeah, Trae Young, it's a good point, Dan. But yeah, Zach, are we moving on to the wheel spin now?
Yeah, we can move on to this wheel spin here. This is the most
All right.
anticipated part.
Oh,
of this,
snap.
Yeah. I don't think we've seen the end of Embiid in Philly. I think we get at least one more year of it, and then if it doesn't work out next year, we might start getting some trade rumors. But we'll
I will be
Man,
staying a
the
Joel
idea of
Embiid
him leaving
fan
Philly
for the
is
foreseeable
ridiculous.
future. So I will still have a connection to the Philadelphia 76ers as a fan.
Oh my gosh.
But I will not be. They will not be my number one team anymore. I will just be rooting for Joel to have good performances, and
like me with Chris Paul.
yeah, it's just I'm just hoping he plays.
This
well.
is crazy.
Like
I
you
am.
with, like,
I
three
am
people
choosing.
back
I'm
on.
letting the wheel decide what fan base I am going to join. I told Declan
Have you
before this, if it
claimed the
lands on Denver,
76ers for like the past
Since 16 or
Well,
17.
5
Jason.
years now?
Well,
6-7
years.
What if it
5
lands on?
years?
What if it lands on Philly again?
I will stay a Philly fan. Yeah, that's just. It's
That's
just
crazy. That's
yeah.
crazy.
So I mean, the only
I
team
wanted
I'll
to land on
respin
Denver
is
so bad.
Denver, because it'll
Join me, ATL.
the discourse will
All
it
right,
won't work
let's
for the
see.
discourse.
Let's see
so-
what he's got.
Denver would be crazy.
All right, no, I'll respin if it's Denver. That's the only team I'll respin
Look
for.
what I got.
Oh no, you can't.
All right, let's go. Spin it.
No.
Yeah.
Not Nick Nurse. Who is that? Is that Nick?
Zach, spin it. We gotta spin it.
All right,
gotta
here we
move
go.
on.
Who am I
He
going
is
to be a
a-
fan
This
of?
is crazy, bro.
He's be Denver.
He's a Utah Jazz.
No!
right,
Rebuild!
guys.
Rebuild!
I am a Utah Jazz fan now.
All right.
Rebuild! Rebuild!
Yep.
Wemby.
Larry Markkinen is now my favorite.
What do they have
player.
like?
I have Utah.
What do they have like the 10th
Utah
best
Jazz.
odds at Wemby because they didn't tank?
I own 2 Utah Jazz jerseys. If you want one of them,
I would love one of them.
all right.
Bro, you could
All
have
right.
mine. You could
You-
could have my men's small, I think.
You have my Rudy Gobert.
Colin
All right.
Sexton, my new
Bro.
favorite player. on the
So we
Utah
now have a
Jazz.
Utah Jazz fan in the call here. But
That's
we're gonna move on.
crazy.
Walker Kessler and Joyer.
Yeah,
All right,
we're
yeah,
gonna
let's move on. Let's move
We're gonna
on.
move on to the Heat and Knicks recap. We're gonna let Jason start with this one
Woo!
as the resident Heat fan. And he can lead us off here.
Okay, I was thinking about like if y'all were gonna recap, but there was a couple moments I wanted to like look back on video, but essentially to me, I have the stats for it up. It was a little bit disappointing to see Jimmy not have like an elite level series, but he's still like Jimmy was still very much a playoff riser in this series. I mean, taking game 1 was big in Madison Square Garden, and then the injury was really annoying at first, but it ended up being pretty chill. The Knicks got very much outcoached by Spoelstra, which is pretty routine with anyone against Spoelstra recently, for the most part. And I think that I was interested to see what the Bam versus Randall and Mitchell Robinson would look like, because I knew that Bam would have a much better series than he did, where he was good defensively against the Bucks, but I was worried about him that entire series, and most of our toughest moments in those series were made tougher because we couldn't get easy baskets. And Bam did a really good job this series. He shot 53% from the field. He got to the free throw line a decent amount of times a game, and shot well from the free throw line, averaging 19 and 10. Mitchell Robinson was pretty much played out of a lot of these games at times, and when he was in, he was doing essentially nothing out there.
Breaking free throws.
He was a solid rebounder though. But I was not scared of Robinson. I was not scared of Randall. Hartenstein wanted to start a fight at one point, and that was the only thing he did. I feel like if I'm New York, I'm saying Jalen Brunson, you are our savior. We are giving you the keys to this team for as long as you can deliver what you just did. But to me, I was never really worried about the series. And then I made sure to really sit down and pay attention to game four, and I was very impressed with how they played that one. And getting 3-1 leads in back-to-back series as an eighth seed is just so impressive. I'm so proud of the team, especially because, like, bro, like people were saying so much about when Jimmy first came, it was like you're going to get a six seed, you're going to lose in the first round every single year. Jimmy just came for the warm weather, like just so much stupidity. When in reality, I was watching Miami Heat beat, and they were talking about that's like my podcast that I watch after most of the games. They're really good. Definitely watch them after a conference finals game or a finals game. And I'm watching them, and they were like saying how to be a good like a great Heat player, you have to have so much discipline, or else you're literally just going to go to the beach or go to the clubs and just turn up downtown all the time, because it's that kind of city where like the party and like the warm weather environment can really like make or break some careers. I mean, Dion Waiters was turning up, but he was not leading us in the playoffs. But like you get a guy like Jimmy, you get guys like Bam, Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Kyle Lowry. Like these are, in my opinion, very winning players. I think Gabe has had a great playoffs, and we've managed to figure out ways to play Strus and Duncan Robinson in this series that I'm interested to see what we do with that dynamic against the Celtics. And yeah, from there, pretty good. It's a great series. I'll see if I can get some moments to show from game six to show how I want to see the Heat playing against these Celtics.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not knocking on the Heat at all by saying this. Like it's incredible like what they've been able to do. But after going up and beating Milwaukee in the first round, I mean, it's crazy to say like this this team who lost a game in the play-in wasn't really an underdog in the second round of a playoff series. It's kind of crazy.
Exactly.
And I don't know, like the Knicks are just like one of those teams. I'd honestly put the Hawks in the same tier. I'd put who else would I put in there? There's one more that I had in my head that's like just a very average team, but just not really going anywhere. Like
Wizards.
No, they're not good.
like playoff team.
Minnesota?
No, Eastern Conference.
Chicago?
Chicago. Yeah, you're probably
I guess Chicago. There's so many.
I would not group the Knicks in with those teams. Well,
would
Atlanta,
either.
yes.
No, but
Atlanta,
like,
yes.
No, like the Knicks and the Hawks, like teams who can win a round of the playoffs, but they're not going to win the championship or really do anything.
Yeah.
Nah. Yeah, agreed.
They could be a threat for
I
an
agree with
upset,
that.
but that's about it.
Like the Knicks, I'll give them credit. They kind of proved something in beating the Cavaliers.
Mhm.
The Cavaliers, that's a team. The Cavaliers, the Hawks, and the Knicks are like all in this.
This was the Cavs' first year with this core, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, they're dangerous.
They need Mobley to take a step, and I think he will.
They're dangerous, but like nobody really
I
saw
don't
the
know.
Cavs winning a championship when you have like
Not this year. Maybe with Mobley becomes their best player. That's their path. Their path is Mobley becoming the best player.
when you're lining the Cavaliers up to like Boston or Philly or Milwaukee, like you're not really looking at it like that. And the same goes with like the Knicks. Like nobody's like they proved themselves. They're honestly better than I thought they were gonna do, but like nobody's really scared of the Knicks at the end of the day. Like this is like their first series win in a long time.
Yeah. For the Knicks, Brunson absolutely. I think my main takeaway is Brunson proved himself as a high end number two, if not a number one in this league, and maybe even a number one. Dallas really fucked that up, didn't they? They would be sitting pretty right now if they just kept their role players and Brunson. But Brunson proved themselves, and then Julius Randle now has proven he's not doing shit in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's a bum.
Yeah,
Bro, I feel like we do need to hype up Brunson a little bit.
I was getting
averaged
there. I was getting
31
there.
in the
Brunson, no,
series.
Brunson was insanely good. Brunson, he
This
showed
game
up.
6 performance was a lot to
Jalen
take in.
Brunson is the reason I think that. See, we can talk about the Knicks being like the Hawks or being like the Cavs. The difference is the Cavs already made their big move for Donovan Mitchell. The Knicks have all these assets piled up, and they're in New York. They finally fixed the culture around there. They have Jalen Brunson in place. They have some of these role players in Quentin Grimes, who I really like, Josh Hart, who I really like, Hartenstein, who I think is a good big. Even I think if they make like some kind of big trade, Barrett would be in it. But Barrett played really well and kind of stepped up there.
And the good thing is that these guys have playoff experience now. I mean, RJ did have a very solid playoffs.
Yeah.
He had a really, really bad game 6, but I was impressed with a lot of what I saw from him this playoffs. To me, I do think I am worried about the back end of this lineup because Obi Toppin hasn't gotten better.
No, yeah.
Quentin Grimes, I think, was a solid regular season player, but I think in that kind of this scenario,
I don't know. Grimes looked good, man.
whatsoever.
I thought Grimes looked. I mean, you don't have to be scared of him, but he's a good role player.
Yeah.
Quickly,
Well,
though.
yeah, but are you going to beat up against you have to like be able to beat up against like these deeper teams, and I just don't think you can do that with guys like Grimes and Hartenstein.
I think Quentin Grimes impressed me, especially in that game 5 where he hurt his knee and got up and got that steal. Quentin Grimes played.
Oh yeah, that was
48
solid.
minutes?
That was solid.
He played that whole. He played that whole half. That whole game.
They just
It was a ridiculous game. It was such a stupid game. Game 5 was dumb.
You just need him to be like a 7th or 8th guy anyway.
Yeah. He's like
he can do that. He can do that for sure. He's getting better.
Be what we'll get into this later, but he can be what I think Moses Moody can be for the Warriors moving forward. Where it's like, all right, he's in my playoff rotation. He's doing good things for me.
Are we talking about like how we think the Knicks move forward now that they're in Cancun mode? It's like no.
Do they have any real chance of winning with Julius Randle? Like
no,
even
absolutely not.
But that's I think they are. Whenever the next big name comes available, and I don't mean Karl Anthony Towns, I mean a legit superstar comes available, whoever that may be, whether it be Luka in 2 years and Luka goes to Brunson again. The Knicks will be in that conversation. They'll be the team off.
Because my thing is, are we just banking on them bringing in like one superstar every decade, like how they just got Carmelo in like 2011, whatever?
Well, the difference is they didn't have the Brunson piece in place when they brought in Melo.
Are you saying we need them to make sure they have enough money around Brunson to get somebody like that?
I mean,
they have the pieces to make a trade.
I mean, I was just gonna say about Carmelo, like the Knicks still like Mari Stoudemire and J.R. Smith and players like that.
Stoudemire came in.
He wasn't as good as he was on Phoenix, but like
and Stoudemire. The thing is, they gave Stoudemire that huge contract, that max deal, right? The thing is, they got Brunson on this team-friendly deal that's under $30 million, which is like, oh man, that's almost a max. Well, actually, it's not. Brunson's max was like $40 million, so they got a good discount on Brunson. But I think the Knicks will be a pesky 4, 5, 6 seed for the foreseeable future, but they are in a good position to make a move should someone come available. Yeah. I don't know who that would be. Jaylen Brown, maybe, right? Something like that. Joel Embiid, maybe, if he comes available in 2 years.
I would love that. I would love that. I would love to be a Knicks fan.
I mean, it feels like the Knicks, until they move on and replace Julius Randle with a better star, it seems like their like ceiling is the conference finals at the very highest, and it seems like that would be fantastic for them. But I never see them ever moving on from that series. Randle.
I don't know. I think Julius Randle is going to be a tough player to move. Obviously, he's a really good player, but
it's going to have to be the
good thing about this team is, they have a lot of good young guys that they could, piece into a trade with Julius Randle to still get. They have guys like RJ Barrett, obviously.
If I'm trading Toppin, I'm trading Toppin. But
Toppin, yeah. I mean, they have.
I don't think Toppin has any value at least.
The
He
entire
doesn't
roster. I
is
mean,
the
Julius
thing.
Randle is the oldest player on the entire roster.
That is
Yeah.
crazy to think
28.
about.
So
Well, he's the
You
oldest guy
have
who's
to keep
played. They have like
quickly.
Fournier and stuff,
Yeah.
but
they have Derrick Rose and stuff like that. Yeah.
I
But
think they need to give quickly a 6-man role next year and let him shine as well. Josh Hart is a starter.
Oh, but was
I
it?
think.
Was
I
it
think if has he been starting? Was he starting with Brunson before the injury? I
no, he
forget.
was the 6-man. He finished second in 6-man of the year.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like you give quickly, a lot of reps next season, and then you hope that you can build a much better bench. You need veterans. They need at least 2 veterans on that bench. They don't have any veterans.
I
Like
I
mean,
think
Julius Randle is older than Josh Hart. Josh Hart is 28. Like he's the closest you have. Like
yeah,
dude,
I don't
the
think this
insane
solves
thing is
anything.
I
But
keep thinking when I think about the Knicks in the playoffs, I keep thinking about last year, I think it was when they played Atlanta. Was it last year? 2 years
that
ago?
was
2 years
2
ago.
years ago,
2 years
the Giannis
ago.
year.
that was
And
before we played
Yeah.
ball.
genuinely, Derrick Rose was the best player on that
He
in that series.
was. He
He
was.
was the
He
best
was.
player in that series, and that's just unacceptable. When
And they
Julius
won a
Randle.
single game in
By
the
a good
series.
margin. Like
Yeah.
They won 1 game.
there wasn't really
Right?
anybody
Mhm.
close that I'm like, there's nobody really close to as good as D Rose on this Knicks team, and it was sad.
Yeah, Julius Randle is just he's horrible. He's been horrible in the playoffs, which
He
is
hasn't really
sad
changed.
to
What
see
makes me
because
so happy,
he's a very talented player, but
what makes me so happy is just that the Knicks played the Heat regular season early March. The Heat had been ramping things up a bit because we had rough times early middle season where we were like hovering around the 10 seed, 11 seed. It was rough. We had rough times. But there was a game early March. Julius Randle hits a game winner against the Heat.
I remember that.
And I had all
I
my
remember that
all
was
my friends
crazy.
were over. I literally left my house. I was like, I cannot do this. I was like, Julius Randle is one of those players where watching him play well against your team makes you
It's like,
feel so
damn.
terrible
I'd
because
happy
he
I
just
have to.
seems
Oh,
like he seems
Just
like he
chucking up
has
those
no bag.
mid-range like fadeaways. He's just like, damn.
No, he just feels like one of those players who's not supposed to be good. And then when he's not good, it's like, oh yeah.
yeah. But
I think
yeah, the Knicks.
yeah.
Or Zach can go ahead.
I was just gonna say we can probably move on to the preview for the
Yeah, wrap up on this sorry ass
Yeah.
franchise.
The
Oh
Knicks
yeah,
need
no,
a star.
the
They need a
Knicks
star to
act
come
like they're
available.
this historic. They act like they're this historic winning franchise. They had a night where they brought out like a bunch of legends, and one of them had a ring. Like it was like all these Knicks legends, bro. Like
Mike
they have
Bibby.
done nothing.
like
They're
Vietnam War era before NBA.
Yeah, like we out here talking about like Larry Johnson and Patrick Ewing and like Latrell Sprewell
John
and like
Starks.
no, for real, like
Like
the
a bunch of
Knicks
like
just
yeah. They've been
like
they're all
they've
tall.
got
Their
something
fan
good
base
with
is all tall.
Brunson, but I just like I'm happy that they're still a meme.
Yeah.
And like
All
it would
right.
be cool to see them be good like this good for a bit because New York being good at basketball is good for the sport, but
Mhm.
I'm glad they're not on that contending level.
Yeah. All right. We can move on to the series preview for Celtics Heat. We'll have pods up during the series, so we don't have to go too long. Just kind of our overarching thoughts on what we think is going to go down here. The opening lines are heavily in favor of the Celtics at minus 550 to win the series. Miami at plus 400. Who wants to start us off here with
I
their
will.
thoughts on the
I'll
series?
start us
All right,
off
Zach,
here.
go ahead.
Don't doubt. Don't just don't put Jimmy Butler in more of like. Don't give him more motivation. Don't make him more of an underdog that he has to be. Is what I think. I think that the Celtics. I don't know. They have a better roster than they did last year, but it just seems different, and I don't know what it is.
Coaching and defense. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's
It's
their
not the
mindset.
same as how good they were last year. So I do genuinely think that the Heat have a chance to win this series.
I do too. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what percent I'd put it at. Maybe like I don't know. I'd say maybe like 60-40 in favor of Boston. But I
Yeah.
honestly do think that like I want the Heat to win, obviously, but I don't know. I do genuinely think that the Heat have a good chance of winning the series.
Ooh, I'd love to talk next.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jason.
you're good.
Okay, so for me, as one who feels very avidly about the depth of this Heat team and the coaching of this Heat team, I feel like Boston is a little bit scarier um in terms of their backcourt um than they were last year just because of Brogdon. And I feel like they've found ways to work in Derek White here and
Yeah, White's
there.
gotten better, I think.
Yeah. So for me, that's been a big improvement. They haven't had to rely on Grant Williams, who annoys the crap out of me. Um, and the roster as a whole just seems like Tatum has gotten better, Brown has gotten better. Rob Will is healthy now. The roster is very scary to me. However, they haven't shown that they're an elite team too many times in this playoff run. They haven't until Game 7, and that was quite scary. But to me, what I saw in Game 7 was a lot of well, of course there was really good ball movement, but a lot of Tatum being the player that he is capable of being if you don't, force the ball out of his hands. And a lot of these new like exterior players, like perimeter players, splashing threes left and right. Like if the Celtics are going to hit threes like they hit threes earlier today, it is
Oh my
very much
god.
a wrap for
Yeah,
us.
yeah, it's
And
four-game
I would
series.
Right
it would
for
not
anyone.
it would not be fun to watch. I would literally be so depressed. It would be like the Heat and the Spurs 2014 if the
If you're
Celtics play like they did today.
if you're going on a 21-3 run, I feel like, any team's kind of cooked in that situation, I guess.
Yeah. And
But
I would say,
the thing that does make me happy and that I do look forward to is that I feel like the Celtics are not the way they were last year, where they were just coming into the playoffs so hot that you were like surprised if they had these rough patches. Like we've seen them have plenty of rough patches this playoffs. They gave up 2 games to the Hawks and almost gave up a third game to the Hawks.
uh,
Um, Philly Philly didn't have Joel Embiid and they still lost the game to Philly. This is definitely a very vulnerable team. And if there's any coach who's gonna figure out their vulnerabilities, it would be Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
And to me, Game 7, they're gonna want so much revenge off of that. They're going to.
yeah.
I was looking at this. I can pull up like the last few minutes if I can share my screen in a little bit. But what happened in that game is that the Celtics, looking back, and I was watching. I was locked into that game. The Celtics had a lead for a lot of that game. They were leading by like 10 for a lot of that game. But if you have players that stay in it like Jimmy and Struce and everybody, like they're a team that can go on runs similar to what the Celtics went on today, and you're able to close a gap in that way. And I think that they'll be so competitive, but I am worried about just like the shooting and the improvement of Tatum and Brown as a duo for sure.
yeah. I think some
That's
key
my
things
piece.
here. Yeah, I think some key things here. First of all, Jimmy, like Jason said about the last series, wasn't what he was in the first round series. I think most of that is because of the ankle injury, which he now
And he's
has.
had days and will have had
Yeah,
days.
exactly.
I
He's,
I
he's
feel
he
fine.
now has 4 or 5 days off because they won that series earlier
Think
to get
Wednesday.
ready. Yep, game's Wednesday. He should be close to, if not 100%, come there. In order for the Heat to win this series, the starting point is a Eric Spoelstra far out coaching Joe Mazzulla, which I expect, and Jimmy
Rebounds.
Butler far outplaying Jason Tatum, which I wouldn't say I expect, but I anticipate. That would be my guess that Jimmy Butler has a better series. But that could go either way. Unlike there's no world in which I say, oh yeah, Joe Mazzulla really got the best of Eric Spoelstra in that series. That's not going to happen. But
We
the
went
interesting
two
thing
and
about this,
two against each other this year, by the way. I'll just throwing that in there.
Yeah, the
even
interesting thing
even
about
in the regular season.
this Celtics team, like I said earlier, doesn't play a lot of defense. This Heat team, similar, both these play-in teams are in the conference finals. The Lakers and the Heat are played great defense all year, especially the
We've
Lakers
been
once they got
insane.
their players, and the Heat's defense have been great all year. But come playoff time, the Heat suddenly are now making like 40% of their threes, which I don't know I don't know how long that can hold on. Clearly, it's held on this far, so I don't anticipate it's just going to start going down crazily. But the point there is, even when the Heat don't play their best offensively or aren't in a rhythm, they get really good rim pressure with Jimmy, and he gets to the line. And when Bam's
And you
assertive,
get
they
to the
get into
line,
the
yeah.
paint. Yeah, Bam's assertive, he gets into the paint. When Boston's not hitting their threes, they're going to lose those games. Miami is going to be in every game so long as they are, not having a horrific outing from their shooters. They need to make some of their shots, but because of the way they play defense, and you're not going to be able to hunt Bam and pick and roll. He's one of the few centers in the league who can just, if Tatum gets a switch on a Bam, he'll just stick with him. Like, that's fine. Obviously, you want Bam in the paint, but if he has to, he'll just stick with him. And I think Miami. It sounds very pro Miami. It's because I think they have a good chance in this series. I think they have a shot. I would still pick the Celtics if I was like saying 50. If if the odds were even, and I'm just making a straight pick, I'd pick the Celtics. I think they have more talent. I think their backcourt is going to be a problem with all the depth there. I think Tatum and Brown, between the two of them, are going to cause problems. I think Tatum built a lot of confidence in this series, but at plus 400, if I was a betting man, which I am, I would throw a little bit on the Heat because I think it's much closer than those odds would imply. And
I will be doing that.
yeah, I think it's much closer than those odds imply. And I will happily go with the Heat to have a good chance in the series. This thing to go, 6 games ish, at least 6, 7. And I think the Heat defense is really the Heat role players have to keep playing as they are, because I like all these guys, like you said, Vincent, Martin, Strus, Robinson, but all these guys are guys who you'd think, all right, if these are like kind of end of the rotation kind of guys, I feel pretty good about it. But they're all kind of overplaying what they're cast as right now, and if they can keep doing that, that's great. But you do worry about that, especially in road games in the playoffs, those guys being consistent. But they have been thus far, so I have no reason to think that'll just
I
fall
don't
off.
think they're overplaying.
I mean,
I'll
I don't
say
know.
that right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Caleb Martin playing 40 minutes in playoff games. This feels a little overcast.
Well, here's the thing. Caleb played at the wrong position almost the whole season until he got Kevin Love.
Yeah.
Like, Caleb's been rolling with the punches, and Gabe and
I guess
they're
my
players that
point
have
is,
developed their entire
yeah,
careers.
I guess my point is just that these role players, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Caleb Martin, those are what, like the 4th, 5th, 6th best guys in the league. For Boston, that's not in the league. Oh my God, on the team.
Caleb Martin, all NBA.
Yeah, no, but for
Yes,
Boston,
sir.
those guys in the same hierarchy for Boston is like Al Horford, Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White. These are guys who are really, really high level role players that are like
Marcus
Starting
Smart.
caliber.
Yeah, like super, super overqualified for their spots. Same way for like Denver, it's like you get down, it's like Aaron Gordon's your 4th starter, and it's like Bruce Brown's your 6th man. I trust Miami's guys absolutely, but I just think I do think Boston has the advantage as far as how well they can do with those end of the starting lineup, top of the bench guys.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll use the Bucks series for reference.
Yeah.
Gabe played so well against the Bucks.
No,
He
but
averaged.
I don't think like the
He's
Bucks end
stepped
of the
up his
bench guys aren't that
playmaking
good.
and
But that's my like the Bucks. The Bucks are a really top heavy team. It's like Pat Connaughton's their 5th best player. Like, that's not good. It's like that's
Yeah,
not
but
what you want.
they were a team that prides themselves on their defense, just like the Celtics were last year. I mean, I feel like the thing with the Celtics is that they've had this identity struggle over these past couple seasons because of different coaching and guys like Grant Williams used to be a key contributor last year, and now he's garbage time.
But
And so I feel like when things happen and people are shifting around so much, you have an opportunity for a team like the Heat, where people have been in that organization for so long, to know their role and step up in big moments.
I mean,
I think yeah.
I'm literally just gonna like ride the fence here as like my team in the playoffs is or playoffs slash play-ins played both of these teams now. First I was gonna say like I don't know, like yeah, Boston's defense hasn't and isn't very good, but say like Time Lord comes like is playing like pretty well. Al Horford's made some defensive plays. Marcus Smart's a defensive player of the year. Like they could make like their defense could shore up a little bit and become better. I mean, yeah,
I
it's gonna
just
be
think it's a philosophical shift in the team, though. I just think Joe Mazzulla.
yeah,
They
I
asked
agree.
Joe Mazzulla about defense, and he's like, "We need to make more shots, and our defense will be better." That is not.
Just doesn't
That is
make sense at
not.
all.
I
Yeah.
mean, it makes some sense. I
That's
mean,
not
it
how
is.
Ime was
No,
either.
no, yeah, it makes sense. Like that is true. If you make shots, you can get your defense set,
When
all
when
that stuff.
when
But
Horford
Ime would not have said that. Ime would have said we need to shore up. He started with Horford and Williams, and Mazzulla did not do that until at the end of the series. Actually, he just switched back to that.
when Horford became a 44% 3-point shooter in the regular
Yeah.
season, I guess you can say that, but I don't know. Like, so I said my piece about Boston being good. Now, also, like, I feel like the betting odds is like 200 points in the wrong order, which I feel like is a pretty large shift for like what I should see. Like, I feel like it should be plus 200 instead of 400 for Miami, and Boston at
Minus
minus
350.
550, like minus 350 is like the high end. I think it's be like minus 300 or something. Is still pretty generous. Minus 250 seems more than fair for Boston. For it to go like 6 or 7 games, I feel like all four of us are pretty much in the same boat. Like my Boston in 6 or 7 is pretty much kind of where
There's no shot this thing ends in 4-5 games. 5, I guess I could see, but I doubt it, man. I
Please
really
no.
doubt it.
I mean,
My
if
heart cannot take us getting beat badly. I can
if
take us getting beat.
I
I
mean,
can't.
if Miami
can't.
can win and can beat the Bucks in 5, they can beat Boston in 5 technically. But I could also see a world where
Nah.
Miami falls apart in 5.
I'd be
Heat in
shocked
6,
if this
baby.
thing
Heat in
doesn't. I'd be
6.
shocked if this thing doesn't go 6 games either way. I'd be very surprised.
Yeah.
And game 6 is where? Miami.
Yeah.
Gotta win in
Welcome
Miami.
to
So
Miami.
the Heat are
Well, you have to win
undefeated
you have to win
All right.
win
in
one
Miami
on the
so
road at
far.
the end of the day. You have to
We
win
should
one on the road.
all right.
We should move on.
We
The Heat are
we should move
undefeated in
on
Miami
because
so far. We
should
didn't
move on
talk
because
about it. The Heat are undefeated at home.
We've spent an
Yeah.
hour on the Eastern Conference. We're gonna move on to the West now. We can be a little
Oh
quicker.
gosh,
the
we spent an
West.
hour.
The
Fuck
Heat
the
are
West.
undefeated at home in the playoffs. The Heat are undefeated at home in the playoffs. The Heat are
All right,
undefeated at home in the
So are the Lakers and the Nuggets. Those are the 3 teams that are undefeated at home.
Suns suck. Nuggets good. Lakers good. Warriors suck. All right.
No, that is not what we're doing here.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah, all right. To start with the Nuggets Suns recap, I just like to say I probably enjoyed this series the most to watch because it was watching Jokic and Booker go crazy was wildly entertaining. Booker had 2 games there in 3 and 4 where it's like, holy fuck, he can't miss. It's impossible. But yeah, I think the Phoenix kind of showed us they had 2 players. Chris Paul was okay in one of those games, then got hurt.
And DeAndre Ayton.
Ayton isn't doing shit.
Jock Landale, baby.
Landale played all right, you know.
He's better than Ayton. He's better than Ayton, bum ass.
Yeah, we got the Landry Shamet game, but yeah, do you guys want to start with what we see for Phoenix moving forward, or the Denver stuff? I said we start with Phoenix here. With the new owner there, he's really going full 2K mode right now, where he's firing the coach and he's gutting the roster and trading all his picks for Kevin Durant. And it really looks like it's going to be Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and then they're going to figure out the rest this offseason with some kind of an Ayton trade, potentially a Chris Paul trade. I'm not loving what the Suns outlook looks like right now. It's hard to retool your team like that with the spot they're in right now. Obviously, Durant and Booker's
really
a good
bad.
start, but they have nobody else. They got to completely retool around those 2.
Yeah, but like if you're Phoenix, do you really need to improve that much to get to the Western Conference Finals or maybe to the NBA Finals? Do you really need to do that much to get there?
Well, Chris Paul's going to be 39 next playoffs. And
I think
he's immortal. He's fine.
Yeah,
He's definitely not immortal.
I think they.
He-
I
Yo,
think they
I think
He needs to gain powers from
we're giving
10K.
Kevin Durant so much credit right now. Kevin Durant has slowly been deteriorating in the playoffs.
I was
Like,
gonna get there. He's bad series back-to-back years to end his playoff run.
and
Yeah.
his even this year his playoffs were solid, but like
No, the efficiency was
slightly
not there.
boosted because
Chronic
there's
LeBron
and even then
James
it's like
avoider.
Yeah.
it's like if
Still
Kevin
good
Durant didn't
efficiency.
go
It's
up
just not
against
Kevin Durant efficiency.
If you look at the series,
and
he was
he didn't
shooting
play Kawhi or PG, like he didn't
Who-
play Kawhi like or PG at their best.
Who anticipated Booker to be the man over
Yeah.
KD?
not me, but he was. Booker's the best player on that team right now. That's unquestionably what it looked like.
I don't know. I feel bad for KD though, because the past two playoffs, he's been playing damn near the entire game in minutes.
Yeah, that's my
playing,
thought. Like he's
42, 43 minutes per game coming off of his Achilles
Yeah.
tear a few years ago. It's just not smart to do that.
And they're
He-
expecting him to be their best defensive player is the craziest
Yeah,
thing.
that's
You trade Mikal Bridges and Ayton doesn't want to play defense, and it's just a bad situation.
he's going to be 35 years old next season. He had two major injuries this
And-
year. He had two major injuries the year before that, and they're asking him to play 45 minutes a night in the playoffs. I think what
they
it looks
want
like
bro
to
to be
me-
Giannis. They want him to be Giannis. That's how
what
they're
it looks like
playing
to
him.
me is he's a player who relies so heavily on pull-up jump shooting, and when your legs are tired, pull-up jump shooting is impossible.
It's tough.
It's
Yeah.
hard. It's so hard. You can't do it
At
when you're
least
playing
dude
45
is,
minutes a night like that.
at least dude's tall and long as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
Um,
still it's
Like, he
it's an
barely
impossible
said-
task for a 35-year-old.
He barely
I
has
don't
to
wanna-
jump.
They need
I don't wanna let him
to
off the
bring in
entirely.
another Bridges-like player.
That's not.
They
you can't.
need
You
somebody
can't just,
similar
You can't
to
just get Mikal Bridges back.
Yeah.
There are
I think
guys like that.
exactly.
moving forward,
But that
I think.
yeah.
Or you can go, Jason.
Well, you have to look at the free agent market and see what 3-and-D guys you
Well,
can
there's
get
there's not going to
because
be. You can't with the new luxury tax rules. They're not going to be able to get anybody in free agency. It's going to have to all be players you get back in an Ayton trade and players you get back in a Paul trade if you do that.
3-and-D.
yeah, I
Clint
still have a
Capella.
long ways to go to be able to understand what happened in the new NBA ruling, but
Yeah.
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 So I don't know. Going forward, I think the only way that this team's gonna get significantly better is through the Ayton trade is gonna have to be kind of a fleece. They're gonna have to get some really good role players to
3-and-D God Clint Capella.
There's
His
either
value
one
is
or
so
two
bad.
or three guys, honestly, that really are going to be able to help contribute in the playoffs, which I don't know if that's possible.
What value does he have?
Aiden has some
What
value.
It's
value
literally
I think,
just he's a young guy, he's a young
Aiden
player.
I think
Showed flashes, I
rebound.
guess. That's about it.
I know Aiden.
But
I
if you
think he's a
had traded him
defensive
to the Pacers, if you
They
had
would've
traded
got
him
just,
to
Miles
the
Turner, and that's
Pacers or
about it.
somewhere during the deadline, like it would have been much better. But now
Yeah.
I just don't see
I've just
still
also
why you
heard
lower your
reports
standards
from
that much.
Suns people that Aiton's personality wise, he's really bad when it comes to character issues and
Exactly.
stuff like that. He's Booker and KD trying to talk to him, and he'll just sit at the end of the bench away from everybody and stop talking to everybody during the game.
Yeah.
That's not a player.
And
you
if I'm
wanna
if I'm a
trade
young
lot of
team, I don't
assets
want
for.
any part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want any
Someone-
part of that, I don't think.
How are you
Someone
gonna act
pointed
like
out.
that?
Here, go ahead, Stan.
No, I was just gonna make a quick point, then you can go, Declan. How are you gonna act like that when you have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Chris Paul on your team? If you you're gonna act like that way with any other team. If you're gonna act that way with those three players on your team,
Yeah. Someone pointed out that in his post-draft interview, somebody asked him what success in the NBA would be, and he said getting to his second contract, which is fine to think that, but that is a terrible thing to say out loud. That means you're just yeah. I think
Worried
Aiden has some
money and
value.
just
I think, and you can worry about money. You can say, I want to make money and make a living for my family, but I also want to, that's fine. You
Yeah,
can say
that's
that,
important.
and you can mean that.
Of course.
Yeah, of course it's important. But your goal should be
It's not a winning mentality.
I actually think if you would have said, get to my
It's
third
kind of.
contract, that would have been fine. Because that means you have a long career, you're 30 years old, that kind of thing. But
you won't be in the city for a decade.
yeah. But Aiden, I think he has some value. I think you can turn him into two players that can contribute for it. Like we talked, I'm not going to go up all these trade possibilities, but we talked about personally. We talked about Atlanta, maybe something like
Clint,
Capella and
Clint
Sadiq Bey.
Capella.
Yeah.
Yeah, Clint Capella,
Honestly,
Sadiq
he
Bey,
would be a
like
good fit
Shea
on
Griffin.
the Knicks, but the Knicks have nothing that they can really trade, right?
Oh no, they could do. That could work. You could
Like
do
Top
maybe
in.
Brady and like
Aiden for Robinson and
quickly.
maybe quickly. I
Robinson
don't know if they
top
do
in,
that.
and I would do Robinson top in and something.
Aiden for Robinson and Hart. That might make some sense.
Yeah.
Ooh, I
Like,
don't know if you want to trade Josh Hart though.
Well, he's
I,
a free agent, kind of. It's a weird contract, but
I
it's
feel
fine.
like Robinson will have some value there, and like yeah, you need to put a good player. You need to put a good player with Robinson, but you could do that for Aiden.
Yeah, and that's the type of thing that they need to do for Aiden. And then Chris Paul, he has like a weird deal where it's half guaranteed. I love Chris Paul; he's my favorite player of all time. But you can't count you with this team. You need players that you know are going to be there, and Chris Paul's too injured and too old at this point. So trade his money for someone who'll take his money.
Could
Um,
could could you trade a star for Paul and Aiden? Could you do like a star
Probably
and
not.
No, I think Chris Paul's only got a few teams that are actually going to be interested in him, and I think they're just going to wait for him to
Well,
get.
yeah, I think the Chris Paul thing is a contract deal. It's the Westbrook thing. Not that he's as bad as Westbrook was. He's still a decent player, but I think it's trading for the contract, not
Y'all,
trading for him.
I could
considering
see him
how
going to the
long we're about to
Clippers.
talk about
Yeah.
considering how long we're about to talk about the Lakers, I do feel like we should hit up the
Yeah.
Nuggets in a second.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, I just
Yeah.
wanted to say Devin Booker was probably top 2 player in the playoffs this year. So shout
Yeah,
out to
for
him.
sure.
I don't think anyone expected this.
Nah, I
What do
think
you mean, nah, bro?
bro, they got 30 bombed in another elimination game. What do
He
you
I
was
mean?
understand
shooting,
that, but
dude. It's not his
Listen,
fault.
points per game, he had the
He's
highest points per game this
I don't
playoffs.
think he's
And he
I don't
shot
think
60,
he's
50, 86 on
Yeah,
30
Yeah.
points per game.
but what does he contribute on defense? Bruce
he was
Brown
playing.
had
No,
nights against him. Like
he was playing defense. He was guarding, man. Devin Booker was playing defense at a high level, and he
I
was
guess I
making
don't watch the
ridiculous
West as
shots.
much, but
Devin
yeah.
Booker wasn't engaged defensively every night, but most nights he was engaged playing great defense. Booker really proved something. Yeah, I think he proved he
He
significantly
very
outplayed
much he's
Durant.
a
Oh
player
yeah,
that
okay,
wants to
here.
win.
So
He
their
wants to win
finals run in the
for
playoffs,
sure.
he was a negative on the defensive side, and this year he was +2 on defense, box plus minus. So
Which obviously these stats aren't perfect, but
yeah, it's
he
just
was
to
contributing.
showcase that he was
Yeah.
improving.
All right.
Yeah.
Now for Denver.
I'll give it to him. I'll give
Yeah.
it to him.
All right. Denver.
Booker was awesome.
Yeah.
For Denver, I'll lead us off here. Denver, I love this roster, man. It is so well built. The defense
Very,
isn't
very good.
perfect,
Very
right?
good.
They have rim protection problems, and that's we'll get to that, but that could be a big problem against the Lakers. But offensively, it is their starting five plus their main bench guys, which are Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, and Christian Brown, are the starting five, all guys who can shoot well enough. KCP is a great shooter, Murray's a great shooter, Porter's a great shooter, and then Gordon can shoot enough, and Jokic is a good shooter. And Jokic is running the offense through the high post where it's really a lot of fun to watch. This is the best Denver team Jokic has had by a mile. It's not particularly close. The last 2 years were pathetic excuses for teams. 2020 he had a good team, but this is better than that 2020 team. And Jokic looked like
For
the best
sure.
offensive player in the world by a lot when he was playing. You know, that 53 piece was crazy. He's getting like 30, 10, and 10 every game. We're getting, every once in a while you get a great Porter game, and that's fun. You'll get Murray 2 out of every 3 games being awesome, and he's been great. Gordon did a great job on Kevin Durant. KCP, playoff player. Love KCP. Great player for a team in the playoffs. Bruce Brown, great sixth man in the playoffs. I really like this Denver team, man. And I think they looked, I know it went 6. It shouldn't have gone 6. That thing, they felt like the significantly better team all series.
Booker's why it went 6.
Yeah. Only
If
if Booker
Jokic
doesn't
is
shoot
gonna drop
80%.
a 50 bomb and they can't win, then yeah.
I feel like
It was just rough.
we're always gonna say how this goes 6 or 7 if the Suns are just gonna like last for a little while and then get destroyed by a different European player every single year.
Yeah, I mean, if Booker's going to shoot 80% and score 40, you're going to lose that game. But that Denver team, I think they would be my pick to win the finals right now. And because of what Jokic is doing and how well built that roster is around him. That offense is clicking at a level I haven't seen it click yet. And it's so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
I do need to say that Jokic had like an all-time game scoring like 30 points, 17 rebounds, and 17 assists. Is a pretty
Jokic was unbelievable. He was the
crazy
best player in the
stat line.
he was the best player in the world this series.
He's on
maybe in the
his way to
playoffs.
being the best player in the world
Yeah.
They said it
right
was
now.
the first 30, 15, and 15 game ever in the playoffs. So
And
Yeah.
last year, my pick for MVP was Embiid. This year, I was very much more on the Jokic train a lot of times,
Yeah.
and I feel like he's proving that having the versatility of being able to be a 7-footer that can bring the ball up the court, that can hit threes,
His
and
touch
is
around the
a
his touch
perfect
around the rim,
teammate.
yeah. His touch around the rim's
He's
crazy.
a perfect teammate for guys like Murray and Bruce Brown and KCP too, like all these smaller guards who can kind of guard. And well, and Bruce Brown are great defenders, but like Jokic has stepped it up on defense in the playoffs from where he was in the regular season.
Mhm.
And I also feel like if I'm the Lakers, the player like the Nuggets had a lot of trouble with Devin Booker, but I don't know how much trouble they would have with guys like D'Lo and Reeves
No.
and all these like secondary guys, because I feel like Denver has exactly what it takes to really give those guys problems.
Sure. And we'll get to
Yeah,
that
like-
when we get to that series. But yeah, they're not Devin Booker, that's for sure.
And on offense, I also feel like it's important to give props to their bench because this is a bench that has been very set for these playoffs. Everyone
guys.
knows their role.
Yep.
And everyone was killing it. Christian Braun
Yep.
as a rookie too has been. I always thought he was a pretty solid draft pick for them when they got him, but you have Braun and Green off the bench, and
All right.
and KCP are doing their thing.
Stans, anything to add?
I mean, not really. I mean, I was just not just like when we get onto the series, there might be some.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We can do the Lakers Warriors recap then. So I can start this off as the Lakers fan here in the group. I
Hey,
thought obviously all the TV stuff is gonna be like LeBron versus Steph again. Who wins the series? That's never what this series was about. It was about Anthony Davis versus Steph Curry. And what happened was Anthony Davis outplayed Steph Curry for the series. People are gonna look at the scoring numbers and not see it, but Anthony Davis, they were constantly game planning around how to avoid him on defense and how to score on him. It was one of the most impressive defensive. He single-handedly shut down that offense for games on end. And Steph wasn't terrible. Steph had a fine series, but he clearly wasn't the same player he was against the Kings. And Anthony Davis dominated that series defensively on a level like he did against Memphis. This is this is probably the most impressive defensive run I've ever seen from any player in the playoffs. A guy who is protecting the rim like Joel Embiid, if not better. He's averaging more blocks than anybody in the playoffs since. Can any of you guys guess who's the last player to average as many blocks as Anthony Davis in this playoff run? For
Mark Eaton or Hakeem?
Ben Wallace.
Ben Wallace is a good
Mark
guess.
Eaton.
It's Stans. Got a guess?
Okay, player.
Robert Parrish,
Yes.
maybe.
Ron.
It's more recent.
Ron
Yao Ming.
Artest.
No, it is
Hassan
Dwight
Whiteside.
Howard. It's
What?
Dwight
Oh!
Howard.
That makes
Dwight
sense.
Howard
Hassan
in
Whiteside played in the
2000
playoffs once.
Dwight Howard in 2009 in that finals run was doing it, and Anthony Davis is doing that kind of rim protection in an era with much more space, while also having possessions at a time where he's out there guarding Steph Curry on the perimeter. It was really
With those
remarkable to
long
watch.
arms.
Yeah,
He
it
had
was
them
remarkable
long
to watch.
noodle arms.
He was the player. He was the player I was going to talk about.
Anthony Davis be like,
for next series.
Yeah.
He's the player I was going to talk about for next series. That's the real X factor if the Lakers want to win this series is going to be Anthony Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
For the Lakers,
for sure.
for the entirety of this playoff
I don't think you
run,
can call him an X factor. He's the best player on the team, but
but I mean like before and after. I feel like we've always kind of known, but like they've needed AD to play at a high level to win.
yeah.
regardless.
I have a question for you, Declan.
What's that?
So, I watched the West bubble in much more in the bubble and last season than I did this year. From what I've seen, AD is not the jump shooter that he was in the bubble. Like he was, I don't know
He's not.
if I'm
He's not
missing
the.
something, but
Well,
I
he
feel
what's
like
ha-
he's missing that aspect of his offense that he had.
He's not the 3-point shooter he was. That's 100% true. If you look at his splits from mid range, he's about on pace as good as he's ever been. It's a little lower, a little higher in some places, like regular deviation stuff. But
Word.
his mid range is good. He's not shooting them as often, but that's because if you look at his numbers, he's been much more efficient around the rim. He's these like touch shots, these floaters he's been doing, little hooks around the rim,
Yeah.
turnarounds. He's been remarkably efficient in that. He's been shooting the best from two he shot his entire career because of that. So, he's just trying to get to the rim more. And usually a good indicator is like people talk about this for college players when scouting. It's like if they have a high free throw percentage, their shot will usually translate. His free throw percentage dropped the last 2 years. It's back up to like low 80s this year, and the mid range is kind of coming back in the same way. But yeah, the mid range, the 3-point shot has gone away for sure. But
Like he
yeah,
literally hit a game winner that was a three, and I was just
yeah.
like, I just feel like he was much more. He had more of a bag back then.
He's put on
He had
weight to get bigger to play center, and I think
more
he
ways to hurt you than he has
yeah.
now.
Well, I don't know. I think he just hurts you differently now because he's a better defensive
Yeah.
player now, and
Oh, of
he's a
course.
more physical player than he was then. But yeah, I think the story of that series was AD outplaying Steph. We can we'll get into some of the Lakers retooling stuff. Props to Rob Pelinka. I thought they'd be a playoff team after the trade. Zach, credit to you. You called them a contender. As a Lakers fan, I didn't even see that. But I guess this goes to show how badly Russell Westbrook fit into this equation and how much he was holding back other guys. Because it's not even like there's games where the Lakers are closing with all guys they already had. Like they had a game in the series where it was Schroeder, Reeves, Walker, Davis, and LeBron. Those are all guys who are already
The
on the
Lonnie
roster.
Walker game.
Yeah, but those guys were all held back by the Russ experiment, where all of these like late game Reeves pick and rolls that we're getting, those were all Russ pick and rolls, which was terrible. And Austin Reeves has been a great role player, high overqualified role player kind of thing. D'Lo, I think D'Lo is a prime candidate to be he's a reputation as a bad playoff player. He's a prime
X factor
candidate to
here.
be no, but he's a candidate to be the guy who goes and plays with LeBron, like J.R. Smith in the past, like
Mhm.
KCP, who like going into playing with LeBron, they're these like clowns who don't play in the playoffs and are taking bad
Bro, if
shots.
D'Lo has a J.R. Smith moment in this series,
Oh no,
that's gonna
that's not
be
what I mean.
crazy.
I just mean in moving from like these kind of clownish, dumb decision makers to getting around
Yeah.
this guy and becoming these kind of smart playoff players. Kind of like remember when Kyle Lowry was just always playing bad in the playoffs, and then like Kawhi got there and he had that
Hey,
great
don't talk
run.
about my guy like that.
But that's what it was. Like him and DeRozan
I
always had
know.
these bad runs. And
Yeah.
I think this Lakers roster is better than the one in the bubble. The difference is LeBron's not as good, right? Like LeBron is 38 now and can only be LeBron in spurts. But as far as like between D'Lo and Schroeder and Reeves, you're getting usually 2 out of the 3 show up, and you have 2 really solid creators out there. And then between Rui and Vanderbilt, they're both Vanderbilt's an insane defender, really really good, but doesn't give you much on offense. Rui's a pretty solid defender who can give you stuff on offense. This team is very legit. I didn't see him being this good. And LeBron, has been engaged in defense all playoffs. Seems to finally be breaking out of his shooting slump. Clearly, his foot's still bothering him a little bit, but he still can be LeBron in stretches when he needs to be. They're going to need more of that in this upcoming series. But
Game 6, he looked amazing.
oh yeah, he looked like himself in Game 6. He looked like he turned on the LeBron Jets in Game 6. That was what was it, 39-9 on 14 shots.
39 and 9
good.
on 71% from the field.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking good. But
In my opinion, LeBron is very capable of doing what he did 2020 and just having these moments where He's driving to the rim against Jokic.
I don't think
He's
he can do
finding
it
open
quite like
shooters. Like,
I don't think he can do it as often as he did in 2020, and that's why it's so vital that they have these guys with Reeves and D'Lo who can be these ball handlers because they didn't have that in 2020. They didn't have who was it was
yeah,
Rondo, I guess. It was Rondo and I don't even know who the other guard was. Like, Schroeder
Schroeder,
wasn't there.
right?
It was
It was
it was
Rondo,
like
Was
Kuzma,
Rondo,
Dwight, Danny Green.
Caruso.
Caruso, yeah, Caruso a little bit, but these
Yeah.
guys, Caruso's not the offensive player that Reeves is a better offensive player than any of those guys by a lot.
But
Oh
Cruz
yeah.
is better
Reeves shot
defense.
45 from 3 in this series. Ridiculous.
Yeah, Reeves is a really good player. But this team's legit, and the defense, Anthony Davis is a defensive cheat code that will be interesting to see against Denver. Before we get into that series, we can briefly go into
Oh,
Golden State. Oh, go ahead,
I
Jason.
wanted to talk about an offensive worry that I have for the well, I guess are we waiting to do like a full preview of the series
Yeah.
after
No,
we
we'll do that. We're gonna talk the Warriors, then we can do the preview for the Nuggets
Warriors then
series.
preview? Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good to
So
me.
I actually people are going sky is falling with the Golden State Warriors, end of the dynasty. I definitely think they're not running to the finals every year anymore, but
They're
I'm
cooked.
I don't think they're cooked. I think
They're cooked.
money
Sadly.
the money might be a problem.
Unfortunately.
If
Clay's
the
a
owner,
bum now. It's over. It's over.
yeah. I think
Praise the
ownership,
bomb.
I think ownership, if they're willing to pay, they can keep this team as a contender. You got to trade Poole and maybe some picks to get something serious back. I live in the Bay Area, so some of the suggestions that have been come on. Somebody said if you could trade Poole and some of your other assets, say draft picks or Kuminga, to the Magic for like Markelle Fultz and something. Markelle Fultz
Ooh,
and
Fultz
Wendell
would be
Carter
great
Jr.
on that team.
Fultz, he said
That would be
Fultz and
really
Carter. He
interesting.
said a huge package of Poole and like Kuminga for Fultz and Wendell Carter. Whatever. I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm confused on why you do that if you're a young team. Like, why would they want to trade with a young team?
Well,
I
because
don't know.
Orlando needs shooting,
I don't see
and
that.
they need Poole would make sense. But regardless,
But
you will.
Wendell and Fultz have been so good for them.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think that would be
regardless,
so idiotic.
it doesn't. Well, you'd be getting picks and Kuminga too, and I like Kuminga's upside. But
Yeah,
my
I
point
like
is my
Kuminga
point.
too, even on the Magic, because they wanted him in that draft
Yeah,
at times. Yeah,
my
because
point
they
is
ended up with
not.
Franz and Suggs.
Yeah. My point is
Yeah.
not specific draft picks for players. You can trade Poole for a serious player. The sky is falling, but I don't think it's at the end of the line for the Warriors. I think they keep Draymond. I think they get Clay back on a team friendly deal. I guess the biggest question is Bob Myers. If they don't get him back, maybe it is the end of the line for them. But I think the Warriors will be back trying to compete again with Steph playing at this level. Although this was a bad matchup for them with the size of the Lakers, and they couldn't. The Warriors couldn't score a shot in the paint the entire series. That was a problem. They need more size.
I don't know. They're all these guys aren't getting any younger. Steph's obviously Steph. He's still, amazing. There were a few games where Draymond actually was a big time contributor, like scoring wise even too, but playing like pretty good for, how he's been recently. But Clay and Jordan Poole were just really, really underperforming. Not even just this series, but kind of the entire playoffs, really. Clay just didn't look like himself. He wasn't making those open threes like he usually does. And then, I mean, I saw there were times during these games against the Lakers where they were willingly leaving Klay Thompson open and letting him shoot shots like open to defend other guys like Steph to double them off the ball.
Sad to see if you're a
Yeah.
early or mid 2010s Golden State Warriors fan for
And then
sure.
like Jordan
No,
Poole,
exactly.
he was winning them games last year during that finals run. He would be like, he'd have games where he'd go like ballistic and make like 8 threes and
Oh yeah, against the
really
Nuggets,
take
he
over
was
the
crazy
game. And
last
this
year.
year, he was just
I
a
remember.
shell of that version of himself. So I don't know. I think this team does have potential to maybe, make a serious run like one more time. But I don't know. I feel like soon here, maybe it might just be better to pull the plug and start a rebuild before it's too late, I guess.
I think they owe it to Steph to try and retool around them. If you're going to rebuild, I guess trade Steph, but I don't think there's no world where they trade Steph. So
Yeah.
I think
No
Poole
way.
Poole can't defend. and that's a problem. But he has value to a young team because he's a high upside kind of player, and somebody will trade for him. And you can retool that way. I guess it'll be all up to, does Bob Myers just dump the Poole contract because you're paying Poole 28 with the tax? It's like they're paying him like 150 a year.
If Bob Myers is planning on retiring this, I just saw the Windhorse talking about it earlier. If he's really planning on retiring next year from his position, is he going to go all out before he leaves? I'm
I don't
confused
know.
about that.
I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty, but my gut is they run the Steph, Clay, Dre, Wiggins, Looney are still there, and they retool around those guys with a Poole trade. Maybe they trade Kuminga. They have Moody and Gary Payton to be nice role players, but they find other players around those. They need a center and a forward to solidify that rotation, and not just like a guy, not just like a JaVale McGee, whatever guy. They need
Honestly,
a serious player to
Bro,
be a
what is
center.
that? Not
I think I think that a big something really unfortunate that this team could have had such a bright future if the Wiseman pick actually turned out positive, like a net positive for them, where he actually turned out
It's
to
a
be a good
shame. It's a
player.
shame.
And having him be a good, really good player could have allowed them to have some room in a time like this where a lot of their guys are getting older, and then they'd have a guy like Wiseman who would be up and coming and a future all-star. But he just it's just unfortunate that happened to them. That was a perfect opportunity for them to have a really bright future.
Yeah, they definitely blew that. But we'll see what the
We
Warriors
move on
do.
to
it could go in any number of directions. But on to Lakers Nuggets. I think the biggest part of this series is going to be the AD versus Jokic matchup, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Best defensive player in the league against the best offensive player in the league in my mind. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Jason, I'll let you go because you said you had something to say immediately off the rip here. So I'll let you go with what you got to say.
Yeah, I just have a worry with the style of teams that these are. We saw in the Lakers Warriors that the Lakers style of play very much won out over the Warriors style of play. To me, when I look at the Lakers and when I look at the Nuggets, I'm a little worried at the Nuggets potential to just have Gordon, Bruce Brown, and Jokic sort of putting a wall around the rim and around the paint and really pushing the Lakers to make a bunch of threes. I'm worried about that.
Respectfully, you're wrong.
What?
The Nuggets were one of the worst rim protecting teams in the league. That is their biggest weakness. Is their
Aaron
It
Gordon's
seems
been the
like they
best rim
got better
protector as well.
recently, though. It seems like they've stepped
they
it
have
up.
looked better in the playoffs, but that is because they are playing against teams who don't pressure the rim. What does Kawhi do? He gets to 12 feet and raises to shoot. What does Booker and
Mid-range
KD
guys.
do? They get to 12 feet and they raise to shoot. They have struggled. Who did they struggle with the most in the Clipper series? Russell Westbrook and Norman Powell, because they got to the rim consistently.
Russ looked like the best version of himself.
Yeah, exactly.
In the city.
Sorry, that's a different series. I'm thinking of the fucking Suns. My brain's going, but they struggled with those at the end of the regular season with rim pressure. They struggled. Once Ant got aggressive, they struggled with Ant getting to the rim. I think
I
have the exact opposite take, where I think I would pick the Nuggets to win this series. I think they're the biggest reason to pick the Lakers is they are one of the best rim pressuring teams in the league with LeBron and Austin Reeves and Anthony Davis and all these guys who get downhill and at the rim. And Jokic is a fine defender, whatever. He's not great. He's fine. But he's not a rim protector. He's not protecting the rim. Aaron Gordon's decent at it, but he's a power forward.
He's too small.
He's too so the thing is the Lakers.
I've been really impressed by what he's done in a lot of big moments.
I have too. I think Aaron Gordon is a really good matchup for LeBron on the perimeter. But once he gets lateral with him or even with him and he's getting at the rim, they don't have the bodies to stop the Lakers at the rim. Like Memphis did with Jaren Jackson Jr. And clearly the Warriors struggled because they had nobody to stop the Lakers at the rim, and they were getting to the line 100 times a game.
I don't know. I feel like Looney rim protection wise is a lot similar to Jokic, where he's just not athletic
Yeah,
enough.
he's too small.
Really, like,
Looney
make
was
a
too small,
presence.
and Jokic is
Yeah.
Looney's too small, and Jokic is not athletic enough to
These guys
make a
are
rim
just. I feel like
presence.
these guys just like. I feel like he's like like. Don't get me wrong, Jokic is a strong player, but I
Yeah,
can
he
just
can
see
guard in the
guys like
post. He just
AD
can't.
backing him down and getting good shots over him because he can't contest as well as someone who
It's-
might be a little more athletic.
Jokic can guard one-on-one in the post. He's just not as good with other guys coming downhill and challenging him at the rim. Like that's not something he's gonna do.
I can also see a world where LeBron really tries to attack him in the pick and roll and get him switched onto him, and then full head of steam towards the rim kind of thing.
That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna hunt Jokic. They'll hunt Murray at
Yeah.
times, Porter at times. Because
I think LeBron will have he'll have moments where he looks like he looked at the end of that game 6 against the Grizzlies. Am I tweaking right now?
the Warriors.
Game 6 against the Grizzlies.
Warriors, yeah.
But when he was destroying the Grizzlies in the paint to close the series.
That happened at the game 6 of both of the series.
I think he'll have a lot of those moments. It's just a question of if he can just keep putting that pressure on.
Yeah, I agree.
Which
I think that is the Lakers' biggest advantage is that. And in the other direction, I think the Nuggets' biggest advantage is their ability to the way Anthony Davis can guard the pick and roll with anybody and can switch out and guard on the perimeter. But the way he was able to dominate these games defensively was they stuck him on a guy like Gary Payton and allowed him to roam and just fuck up everything. With this Nuggets team, they kind of need him to be on Jokic, and that kind of might, if Jokic is operating from the top of the key sometimes, that might take him out of certain plays. You might even see
get it out of his hands, yeah.
Yeah. You might even see a guy like Rui get starting minutes in here because he's a big, strong body, and they might put him on Jokic.
Please.
And it's not that Rui can stop Jokic or anything, but AD would be there to help with Jokic and put him on Gordon or something. It's yeah. My point is, AD is most impactful when he's able to roam and help and all that stuff. And Jokic might keep him out of the paint in that way. And that is because they have everybody can shoot in that starting lineup. That is a huge hole for the Lakers. If you remember all those Bucks teams that Darvin Ham was an assistant coach for, they were great defensively but gave up a lot of threes. The Lakers are a similar kind of team. They've been guarding well against the three because if so long as a team has one non-shooter, they can handle it. But the
Bucks still gave up a lot of threes without him.
Yeah, exactly. But the Denver doesn't have any non-shooters on their main starting lineup, so that could be a big problem. I think that's probably how I think there's gonna be some games here where Denver's just making a bunch of threes because they're getting great looks and then once they start to do that, they get AD out of the paint and they're getting to the hoop, and it's gonna be tough for the Lakers to guard.
You have to contest everything against Denver. You have to get a hand up on every shot.
I think I think the one guy that they could maybe, make a couple threes and then we'll guard you is Eric Gordon.
Yeah, Gordon's the one.
Or
I think that's what they're going to try.
Or MPJ.
Although Jokic's shooting numbers from three are good, I think that they could also do it with him because he'll have spurts where he just can't make a three.
No, but the thing is with Jokic, it's AD is going to be on him. You'd presume he's going to be on him anyway. So if you can't just give him space, even if he's not going to shoot, he can shoot. You don't want to leave him wide open. But even if he's not, if you give him space for those dribble handoffs, they're going to tread you with guys coming off those screens and stuff. So it's an incredibly hard offense to guard.
Yeah.
It'll be
Hold up,
really
we need
tough,
more
man.
Stands content.
Yeah,
we need more Stands content.
Dude, I mean, I don't know. I feel like y'all have covered like a good amount of points. I think we're gonna have a great series though. I think AD versus Jokic, as you all said, is going to be the main matchup. I mean, of course it is. Like, literally, what else is going to be the main matchup? Even if you said
Bron versus Michael Porter.
Hell yeah. MPJ.
Well, who
MPJ,
guards Jamal Murray? How do you think Jamal Murray is going to do?
Reeves.
If they start Vanderbilt, it'll be Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
But if they don't, when Schroeder's out there, he'll definitely guard Murray. And when he's not, Reeves or Vando. But I think we're going to get to like game 3 of this series, and it's going to be Vando's minutes are going to be significantly cut down because if Denver, because Vando is one of the best defensive players in the league. Not AD or Embiid or anything, but he's a really good perimeter defender and can protect the paint a little bit. is nothing on offense. He's a nothing. Unless if he's not making his corner threes, he's giving you nothing. Sometimes he can dive a little bit and do something, but if they have Vanderbilt out there, I promise what's going to happen is they put Jokic on Vanderbilt so that way he can play free safety and fuck things up in the middle. Versus Rui, you have to guard on the perimeter and make him work and stuff. So I think by game or they go small and go with Dennis in the same way they did in game 6. I think by game 2 or 3, we're going to see Dennis or Rui in that starting lineup in place of Vanderbilt. But with that said, Vanderbilt's the best option to guard Murray because Vanderbilt's this big wing that's guarding. He guarded Steph, he guarded Ja very well.
I mean, I don't want to like completely like disregard your point and go on a different tangent. I mean, I
No, go ahead.
completely
There's nothing else to add.
I completely agree though about like what you said between like Jared and Rui and all that. But like Jason said, what about Jamal Murray? Is Jamal Murray going to shoot well 50% of this series or like 80% of this series or something like that? Like, I mean, it's just how consistent will he be? I think. Like, I mean, we all know he's there. It's just, does he play well 4 out of 7 games or 5 out of 6 games or something like that?
Yeah, and I think
and I'm impressed by what he did in this against the Suns throughout like the course of the games. I would want him to shoot better from 3 against the Lakers for sure.
And I think especially
but
for
I
a
think
guy
he'll
like
be impressive.
Especially one thing last point here, especially for a guy like LeBron who's he's really got to conserve energy and pick his spots. Playing in Denver is going to be tough. That's going to be really tough with the altitude.
And crazy.
It's a very big home court advantage. I think it's on the board that the home team just wins every game of this series. That Denver wins games
Scary
1,
premise.
2, 5, and 7. I like the Lakers' chances at home, absolutely. The Lakers actually, interesting stat. When do you think the last time the Lakers lost a home game that LeBron James started in?
In the regular season?
When he got the record.
Yep, that's correct.
Wait,
February.
that was long.
Yep. When he passed Kareem against OKC in February is the last time they lost a home game that LeBron James started in.
That's crazy.
They're undefeated.
Me and my roommate Seth were watching that and we were like, "Yep, he's the GOAT." But they're still gonna lose because the Lakers bad, and now they're not bad anymore.
I do want to make a few points really quick just about matchups here. I know you guys are gonna roll your eyes because I say this a lot, but I think AD is, like Declan was saying, AD is probably the best possible defensive matchup you could have for Jokic, and just this season the stats kind of agree with that. I mean, he's averaging below his season averages against the 4 games in the Lakers, and they're 2-1 against the Nuggets when LeBron plays this year. So I don't know. I think this could be a really we said this already, but this is going to be a really interesting series. Obviously, with LeBron, he could really, really solidify his case as the greatest of all time. And a lot of people, if he can, make the finals with this team as a 7 seed. And it's going to be really interesting because imagine the finals as a 7 seed versus an 8 seed.
That'd be funny, great,
insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited.
I'm taking Nuggets in 7 and Heat in 6, though.
I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah,
it's going to be fun.
And I low-key, I agree.
6.
Well, no. Actually, Declan, I think both teams take a road game.
Okay.
I think that happens. That's something that I kind of want to happen, but I also do think that LeBron is the kind of player where if you send him to Denver and he goes beast mode for 30 minutes, like I feel like they can take a game 2 in Denver or a game 5 in Denver.
Yeah, I think the path in the last 2 series is they won game 1 on the road and then won all their home games. That's how they won the last 2 series. I think.
Wait, repeat that.
I pick the Lakers, how they won their last 2 series. They won game 1 on the road and then they lost all the other road games and won all their home games. So
similar to the Heat. The Heat have won every game 1.
Game 1 is usually I remember hearing announcers talking about this. Game 1 is usually the easiest game, the most winnable game for the road team to win.
A road team.
Yeah.
Because The
For
teams
sure.
don't. It's their first time playing each other in the playoffs. So
And
you know,
especially for a team like this will be the one time the Lakers have like 4 days rest as opposed to
yeah,
1 day rest, 2 days rest. But yeah, my pick would be Nuggets in 7, I guess. But I think I think sometimes we get to the conference finals and you're like, these aren't the best 2 teams in the conference. Like say, oh, I think these are the best 2 teams in the conference. I think
They are.
I think they've shown that over the playoffs and over the last few months of basketball for the Lakers and the whole season for the Nuggets. But it should be a lot of fun, and I'm excited for it.
I mean,
And
do we
Stamps?
kind
Well,
of
we
have to say
say that I
about,
wanted.
do we kind of have to say
Go
about
for it, Stance.
both conferences at this point
Yeah,
though? Like
I would.
they're the
I agree.
best teams left. Like
Yeah, Miami beat. But my point is, it's maybe more.
We
in
may
question
not
with
have
maybe,
the best roster.
Yeah. My point, maybe
I'll say that
more
we
in
may not have the
question
best
with
roster,
it might
but
be more in question with the East because you could argue maybe
yeah.
Philly, right? Because they gave Boston this huge fight. But
Yeah.
Miami beat Milwaukee, so I think I would my opinion is yes, it is the 2 best teams in that conference as well. But there's been years where it's like, what was it? Was it like
I think you have the
2019?
best organization in the
Yeah.
Heat versus the best roster in the Celtics.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, but my point was only like in 2019, like the Warriors and Rockets played in round 2, and then that was a close series, and those were the 2 best teams in the conference, and then the Warriors just stomped the Trailblazers. Like that's what I'm saying
Yeah.
is like sometimes you get the best matchup in round 2. Brooklyn and Milwaukee in 2021, those were the 2 best teams in the conference.
For sure.
But this time it feels like we have the 4 best teams left, or the 2 best in each conference. But we've been going for almost 2 hours now. And it's time to wrap it up.
let's get to the Nick Miller question of the day and let's
All
wrap
right,
it
so
up.
we have the Nick Miller question of the day, and then we will get
Yeah.
So
Has
the
that
Nick
been in
Miller-
every segment?
Yep, every episode we do it. He sends me it. You can see it. You can see he sends me in the blurred text. I can't see the answer. See, he sends a little blurred text there. All right. So the question is, name the 3 active leaders in 40-point playoff games. And bonus if you can say how many for each of them.
Well, I'm never gonna get the number.
I know. I have my answer locked in.
I don't know the number either. I know the number for number 1.
Well, I
Of course
saw
you
how
do.
many Jason Tatum had on the broadcast today. Is that enough though? I
No.
gotta think. Because it wasn't
What was the
nothing.
question?
Name the
What's
3
what's the
active
top
leaders
3
in 40
players
point.
with 40-point playoff games? I think.
I have 2.
Yeah.
I
The
have
3
2.
active leaders.
Yeah.
All right. Could that
3
actually?
active leaders. I mean,
I think that's it.
All right, I have my answer.
let me type
I have mine.
the 3 active leaders in 40 piece in the playoffs. Active leaders. Interesting.
All right, I have my answer.
Howard.
Jason, you want to go with your answer?
Let me.
Udonis Haslem.
All right, so what I have is. Oof. Do I buy this? Low key, I think Jimmy's close. I just went chalk and put LeBron, KD, and Curry.
That's what I put. I put LeBron 28, KD 17, and Curry 10. I don't know about the numbers. I know LeBron is 28. I'm fairly confident in that.
Damn, that's funny.
Stan.
That's so funny that I left Katie off of there. That's so funny.
All right, Stan, what do you
I
got?
low key think because Jimmy has like 8 of them Johns
I
now,
put
so he's probably
LeBron.
top 5.
I put Steph, and I put a very left field one, Damian Lillard.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay,
I,
what do you have, Zach?
I took into account that Nick Miller is giving us this question of the day. So
Oh
I said
shit,
LeBron,
you're right. It's gonna be
Oh,
James Harden.
I was thinking Harden too.
So the answer is, yeah, Zach, you got it. LeBron 28, Durant 14, Harden 11.
Yeah, our Harden fan.
do you know who?
So does Curry have 10? Does Curry
I don't
have
know
10?
how
Is that
many.
his
I don't know
answer?
how many. I don't know how many.
Bro, I got
playoff-
1.
Because Curry didn't have a 40 piece against the Lakers, but that big game against the Kings, wasn't that his 10th or something?
Dude, Damian Lillard's had to have at least 7 or 8.
Jimmy has
only
8.
Steph
So
has 7 or 8 now. 8 after the Kings game.
he's tied with Jimmy, I
Who's
think.
third? Who is third?
Harden with 11.
Oh,
Jimmy
I'm,
had 2 this year. He had
I'm
like
figuring
3 in the
out
bubble.
Dame.
Yeah, Dan was a good
Right.
guess.
All right, so we now tally up. Zach got it right. Points that we haven't been keeping track of, but he gets one of those. And yeah,
Yeah, Jimmy is
What if
tied
we
with,
started keeping track now?
yeah. All right. This is a long one, so if anyone's here, Dad, if you made it this far, Mimi, my grandmother who listens to this apparently,
Dang. Oh gosh.
Nice.
Stan.
Nice.
She doesn't actually. She just listened to it one time.
Give me get some nice colorful language.
It be your own family. It's like, no.
But
So
all right.
I figured out Dame only has 4, but 2 of them are 50 points. So
Okay. That should count as 2 each. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna head out. Hopefully, I can get some guys on here to do some game recaps after some of these conference finals games. I would love to do that. And we won't be going for 2 hours because we're only talking about one game.
yeah.
But
Wednesday night, I'll stay up for a bit after that game 1.
I'm down. I'll recap both game ones after those on Wednesday night.
We
I'll be
figure
there.
out, boys. Good lord.
All right. All right. Well,
I'll think
we'll
about it.
see y'all
I'll think
next
about it.
time on the Bird Rights Podcast. Peace.